Welcome to Unbreakable Truth. The truth, they say, has a strange way of revealing itself, not with a bang, but in moments so quiet you could almost miss them. In whispers. In stillness. In the soft breath of a pause. That's how mine came to me. Not like lightning, but more like the sun pushing gently through the blinds after a stormy night. It was just another Friday evening in our sleepy Ohio suburb. The kind of day that comes and goes without ceremony. The sky had settled into that golden hour where sunlight feels like warm honey and the shadows stretch long across the sidewalks. It smelled like cut grass and dust, like summer barely hanging on. I had just walked in from school, the weight of my backpack sliding off my shoulder with a sigh of relief. My shoes hit the tile, one, then the other, and I stood for a moment in the entryway, absorbing the silence. That silence was rare in our house. Mom was pulling overtime at the hospital again. Tyler, my little brother, was off at a friend's house for a sleepover, probably high on soda and video games. That meant it was just me and Dad. I didn't think much of it. At 16, you get used to retreating into your own little world anyway. I tossed my backpack in the corner of my room and collapsed backward onto my bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in lazy circles. I let the quiet wrap around me like a blanket. Peaceful. Still. But beneath that stillness was something else, something I hadn't dared name out loud. A hum, low and constant, like a distant thunder that never quite broke the sky open. From the cracked window, I heard Dad humming along to some old rock song, the kind only Dad seemed to know by heart. He was out in the garage, elbow deep in rust and oil, trying to bring his 1972 Chevy back from the dead, something he'd been attempting for the better part of my life. I smiled faintly at the sound. It was comforting in a way. Safe. I thought I was alone in that safety. So I reached under my bed and pulled out the journal. The black one with the frayed binding, the one I never let anyone touch. The one that held more than just lyrics or half-written poems. It held the parts of me I hadn't yet found the courage to speak into the world. I flipped the last page. The paper was slightly curled, stained with old ink and maybe a few tears. My pen hovered. I hesitated. Then I wrote, I think I'm different. Not broken. Just not what everyone expects. The words came in pieces. Fragments. Half-truths I hadn't made whole yet. I don't even know how to say it out loud. But every time I see Ryan in the hallway, that's when it happened. The door creaked open without warning. No knock. No footsteps. Just the soft groan of old hinges and a sudden rush of panic in my chest. I froze, and there he was. Dad. Standing in the doorway holding a wrench. His eyebrows lifted in surprise, his gaze sweeping across the room before landing on the open journal in my lap. My pen dropped. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Crushing. He stepped inside, casual, like nothing was wrong. Like my entire world hadn't just cracked wide open. Hey, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Sorry. Didn't know you were writing. Garage light blew out. Can't find the spare bulbs. You seen any? I stared at him. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. The journal was still open. The words were still fresh. He'd seen them. Or enough of them. He glanced from my face to the journal and back again. His expression didn't harden. Didn't shift into anything cruel. But it changed. Something unreadable passed over him, like a shadow slipping across his features. A flicker. Then it was gone. Everything okay, Caleb? He asked softly. I swallowed. My voice caught. Yeah, just writing. Nothing serious. But it was serious. It was everything. But it was serious. It was everything. He walked in slowly and sat on the edge of my bed, the wrench still dangling loosely from his fingers. He didn't look angry. He didn't even look confused. Just thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. Hesitantly. "That journal. You wrote about feeling different, about someone named Ryan." He paused. "You want to talk about it?" Everything inside me shattered and reassembled in the space between heartbeats. I hadn't planned for this. Not now. Not ever. I always imagined coming out as a carefully scripted event. Me older, braver. Him understanding. A perfect, well-rehearsed moment. But now, here it was. Raw. Unfiltered. Unexpected. And I wasn't ready. I don't know," I stammered. He nodded like he understood more than I thought he would. More than I ever gave him credit for. "Caleb," he said, and his voice was gentler than I'd ever heard it. "When I was your age, I didn't know who I was either. I pretended. A lot. I played the part, tried to be what people wanted me to be. But inside, I was just confused and scared. I didn't talk to anyone about it. Thought I had to figure it all out on my own. Thought I had to figure it all out on my own?" He looked at me, really looked at me. "You don't have to do that. You don't have to hide from me." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. "I saw your writing," he continued. "And it's okay. It's okay if Ryan is more than a friend to you. And it's okay if you're still figuring things out. You don't need to have all the answers right now." I stared at him, my mouth open but no words coming out. He had said it, out loud, what I'd been too afraid to even whisper in my own mind. And he wasn't angry. He wasn't disgusted. He was just there, with me. "You're not mad?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He set the wrench down beside him and shook his head. "No, I'm proud of you. For being honest. That's brave, Caleb. Braver than you know." Tears threatened. I fought them. I didn't want to cry. Not in front of him. Not now, but something in me was breaking open. Not in a bad way. In a freeing way. I don't know what it means yet, I admitted. I just know I feel something, and I'm scared. His hand rested on my shoulder, warm and grounding. "That's fair, but you're not alone. You've got me, and your mom. Even Tyler when you're ready. There's no pressure. Just know you're loved, exactly as you are." I felt the first tear slip down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. "I thought you'd be disappointed." He pulled me into a hug, solid, strong, familiar. "Never," he said. "You're my son, and I love you. That doesn't change." We sat like that for a long time. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full of everything you didn't know how to say. Eventually, he pulled back and smiled. "Now help me find that light bulb. I'm half blind in that garage." I laughed for real this time. The kind of laugh that untangles something inside you. We found the spare bulbs in the laundry room tucked behind a basket of mismatched socks. He let me sit on the hood of the Chevy while he worked. Grease smeared on his shirt. Music playing low from an old radio. He told me stories. About high school. About a girl he liked who turned out to be gay. About how he reacted poorly and how he regretted it. About how people grow. How he grew. That night, I went back to my room and opened the journal again. I didn't finish the sentence I'd started earlier. Instead, I wrote something new. My dad walked into my room and found a truth I wasn't ready to say. But he gave me something I never expected in return, acceptance. Later that night, the house settled into a hush again. The kind of quiet that stretches between rooms, between thoughts. The only sound was the occasional tick of the hallway clock and the soft whir of my ceiling fan. I stared at the blank journal page for a long time, that last sentence echoing in my head like a whisper. But he gave me something I never expected: acceptance. I wrote it slowly, deliberately, and then I stared at it. Not because I doubted it, but because a part of me still couldn't believe it. It's strange the way the world shifts after something like that. You expect fireworks or at least some dramatic internal shift. But it doesn't happen all at once. It's quiet, subtle, like the weight of the world lifting one brick at a time. I lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling as emotions tumbled over each other. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not the version of me I showed at school, not the slightly edited version I let my friends glimpse, but the real me, the one I kept hidden behind carefully worded journal entries and unspoken feelings. Sleep didn't come easily. My thoughts were a carousel, looping between moments I hadn't looked at in years. I thought of Ryan, the way he laughed at his own jokes, the way he always knew when I needed a distraction, the way he touched my shoulder once and made my heart race like a song hitting its crescendo. I thought of the fear that came with that realization, the constant internal question, what if they knew? What if my friends, my teachers, my parents, what if he knew? And now my dad did. And he didn't flinch. I woke up the next morning to the smell of pancakes. Real pancakes. Not from a box, not burnt. My dad's "I'm proud of you" pancakes. He only made them twice a year, when I won a science fair in 6th grade and when I broke my arm in gym class and didn't cry in front of the school nurse. This made 3. He didn't say anything when I walked into the kitchen, just slid a plate in front of me with a goofy smile and extra syrup. No fanfare, no speech. But it was his way of saying, I see you. I'm still here. We didn't talk about the journal. Not that day. Not in so many words, but something had changed between us. The air felt lighter. The silence didn't carry the same weight anymore. That weekend, we spent most of Saturday working on the Chevy together. He let me hold the flashlight, taught me how to change the oil, how to recognize the difference between a spark plug and a coil pack. I pretended to care about cars more than I did, and he pretended not to notice. But I think we both knew what we were really doing. Rebuilding something. Later, after the sun dipped below the horizon and the garage filled with shadows and the smell of motor oil, I asked him the question I'd been holding in my chest since that night. Were you scared? He looked at me, grease on his cheek, sweat on his brow. When? When you were my age. When you didn't know who you were? He leaned against the workbench and wiped his hands on a rag. Terrified, he said. I thought I had to be someone for everyone else. The strong one. The funny one. The funny one. The dependable one. But deep down, I didn't have a clue who I really was. And that scared the hell out of me. I nodded. Still does sometimes, he added with a wry smile. Still does sometimes, he added with a wry smile. We stood there for a moment, 2 generations trying to make peace with the same storm. That night, I started writing differently. Not just secrets, not just fears, but possibilities, dreams. I began imagining a future that wasn't weighed down by pretending. A future where I didn't have to check my words or monitor my body language or avoid eye contact in the locker room. A future where maybe, just maybe, I could be myself. It wasn't all perfect after that. There were hard days. Days when the fear crept back in. When I overheard kids at school toss around slurs like confetti. Days when I saw Ryan smile at a girl in chemistry class and felt something sharp twist in my chest. But there was also progress. I told my mom a few weeks later. She cried, not because she was disappointed, but because she was relieved I trusted her. She held me like she hadn't since I was 5 and had a fever so high I hallucinated my teddy bear was talking to me. She told me I was brave,
that she loved me, that nothing could change that. Tyler, when he found out, just asked if it meant he still had to share the PlayStation. When I said yes, he shrugged and said, "Cool. Can I be Spider-Man now?" And that was that.
But the real shift, the one I didn't expect, was in me. I began to walk taller. Not because I was proud all the time, but because I stopped shrinking. I started showing up in my own life. I joined the school's music club. I played one of my original songs at the winter showcase. Ryan clapped louder than anyone, and though nothing ever happened between us, nothing romantic, I think he knew. And I think that was enough. There was one moment that sticks with me, though. One night in spring, when the air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of lawnmowers in the distance. Dad and I were sitting on the porch, the Chevy parked at the curb, finally restored. We watched the sky shift from blue to indigo. The stars just starting to poke through. He sipped his coffee. I nursed a soda. "I ever tell you how proud I am of you?" he asked, not looking at me. "You've said it," I replied, "but it still surprises me." "Good," he said. "It should." "Why?" "Because pride isn't something you earn by being perfect. It's what I feel because you're honest, because you show up, because you're trying. That's what matters." I didn't respond. Just let the quiet say everything we couldn't. That night, I wrote the final words in my journal before I put it away for good. I used to think the scariest thing in the world was being found out, but it's not. The scariest thing is never being found at all. I closed the book. I didn't need it anymore. I was ready to be seen.